Welcome back to Leadership Rediscovered with Laura Siebold. This episode is a continuation of last week's episode. So if you haven't listened to that one yet, we suggest you go back and listen to part 1.
I'm curious. I would like to hear you very, very briefly mention The Way. What's it called, The Way? Mm-hmm. Can we revisit that? I like the sticker. Just more detail on what prompted that and how you've been able to leverage that.
So again, I had dealt with anxiety and depression my entire life.
Mm-hmm. And did you know it?
Oh, absolutely. No.
Okay.
I didn't know that's what it was called.
Okay.
But from 3rd to 5th grade, I really struggled. That was when my dad started his business. He was gone from home a lot. Mm-hmm. Like I said, both of my grandfathers were pretty violent alcoholics. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of trauma in my life. And, you know, there's this book by a guy named Bessel van der Kolk called The Body Keeps the Score. Ooh. And what the concept is this. The basic thesis for the book is the traumas that we experience in life are held in the body. Okay? Well, I'd experienced some trauma in my life, and it was holding in my body. Sure. And I'm not trying to be inappropriate by this, but I literally vomited every morning of my life from 3rd to 5th grade.
Oh, my gosh.
No 5th grader should have to have an upper GI.
No.
But I struggled with anxiety and depression every single day. And that all just kind of was there. And I remember my primary care physician, when I was a kid, he just basically said, "There's nothing wrong with you."
I wondered about that, how that would have been diagnosed.
Well, anybody who's listening to this, who's ever dealt with panic attacks, anxiety, fear, anything like that, and you go to the doctor or you go to the emergency room, they will run every test on you in the world, okay? And if you have somebody who doesn't have time, they may be overwhelmed on their shift, or doesn't have any sort of empathy towards that, they're going to look at you and say, "We've run every test. We can't find anything.
Medically on paper,
there's nothing wrong with you." This is part of the problem.
Yeah.
There is something wrong. Yeah. But there's such a stigma that comes with mental health.
Yes.
And as soon as you say that, people are like,
right.
You know what? Right. Looky here. If nobody criticizes you for having diabetes.
No, or a broken arm.
No, this is it's an illness. Like, how dare you get the flu? No one says that.
Right.
It's like somehow mental illness is my fault. Yeah. Okay. Now, are there, should you, do this that causes this physical? No. Okay. Right. No, nobody sets out to have anxiety and depression in their life. It's ridiculous. It's not
something people consciously choose.
My goodness, no. There are 1,000 things that contribute to all of this. Okay, so what I saw was, even with my own experience in going through this crash and burn in 2004 that I experienced, and starting to see a counselor and go to my primary care physician and begin with Zoloft and Klonopin for all of those years. Heaven forbid the Christian would take medicine.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But come on now. Yeah. I take heart medicine every day. I take an 81 milligram aspirin. Nobody tells me I'm weak and a sinner.
Yes.
Because I take Keurig and
such a good point.
Keurig and an 81 milligram. Like, no one criticizes me for taking Lipitor.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, nobody says you're weak because you take Lipitor. But we have a society that says if you take, SSRIs, that somehow you don't love Jesus as much. That's ridiculous. It's stupid. It's just absolutely stupid. Okay. So I see all of this, and there were a lot of us that were beginning to see this. And I was not qualified to deal with the counseling load that was coming into my office. I'm just, but we have so many people that are in this crisis, especially since COVID.
I was going to ask about that.
Especially since COVID. So I'll give you a statistic here in just a second. So a friend of mine is a doctor over at the pain center over behind Applebee's. And I said to her, Corinne, what do you think about me going back to school? She was like, Kevin, you've got to go back. There's such a crisis. We need as many people as we can, all hands on deck. Yeah. So at 50 years old, in running this church in this 501c3, we got to do something.
Yeah.
So went back to Liberty to get my master's degree in counseling.
Okay.
I remember this. My very first class, like Introduction to Counseling 101. And this textbook was written pre-COVID. This will blow your mind. The book said, chapter 1, third paragraph,
Yeah.
that there was one counselor for every 800 people in need. Pre-COVID.
In need.
In need.
One for every 800 people in need, not just like per capita, 1 in 800.
And that's the ones we know.
Wow.
That's not the people that don't report,
Right.
that shove it down,
Right.
that swallow hard, that say,
Mind over matter.
Exactly. Or say, I'm weak if I cry. I've got to be strong. I would never. These are the people that we know.
Yeah.
One for every 800 pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID. A healthy client load for a counselor, 25 to 35.
Right.
So think about that. We can't cover the load.
No.
So over the next couple of years, get your master's degree in counseling, start looking for other counselors. So we have 3 licensed professional counselors, 2 of us who have master's degrees in pastoral counseling.
Okay.
One guy actually has a PhD. I don't have a PhD. And then we have another person who has like coaching certification.
Yeah.
And so what we do with the WAY program, and this is through our 501c3, The Source, we run a winter spring semester, a summer fall semester.
Okay.
And it runs from early February to Memorial Day, and late August to Thanksgiving. And we run these 2 semesters. People come in on Tuesday nights from 6 to 6:30. We run a forum. From 6:30 to 8, we break everybody off into groups for group counseling.
Okay.
And then twice a month, each of the people get a one-on-one with their counselor for a private counseling session. And what we do is we're addressing the person holistically. So think of...
So you're not going in for a specific topic per se.
Yes, we actually are.
Okay.
So what we do is our theory for counseling is this.
Yeah.
So think of a wheel that has a hub, 4 spokes, and a tire. The hub would be the spiritual. All of us have been created spiritually. Then think of the 4 spokes.
Okay.
You've also been created physically, emotionally, cognitively,
Yes.
and socially. So when you look at the person spiritually, physically, cognitively, socially, emotionally,
Yeah.
it forms the entire identity.
Nice.
So when people come to us for help,
Yeah.
we're addressing it spiritually.
Yeah.
We're addressing the physical component.
Yeah.
Okay. So like there's this book called The Anatomy of Anxiety, written by Dr. Ellen Vora. And she says she's a psychiatrist, I believe, in New York City, I think, but psychiatrist. And she says in her practice, more than 90% of people that are dealing with anxiety can be attributed to blood sugar levels.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
You just begin looking at the physical component of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a great book by James Nestor called Breath. It's probably been.
I've heard of that book.
Oh,
yeah.
Probably the best book I've read in the last 3 years.
Really?
Not even a question.
Huh. I'm going to read it.
If people will learn to breathe properly, okay?
Yeah.
So for instance, your inhale, that's your sympathetic nervous system. Okay? So a lot of times when you're having a panic attack and you hold your breath.
Yes.
Well, when you do that, your heart rate increases.
Yeah.
It's no wonder you feel like you're having a heart attack.
Yeah.
Your parasympathetic nervous system is when you exhale. So if you can learn to breathe in balance, deep diaphragmatic breaths, then you're breathing properly. And that's how God made you.
When you're also accessing the part of your brain that allows you to be a little more logically and rationally aware of what's going on too, because you're focusing on your breathing.
Everything is balanced.
Yeah.
So just that component. So spiritually, physically, emotionally. Another fantastic book by Brene Brown. Are you familiar with Brene Brown?
Brene Brown.
Who does not
Bring
love
it
Brene
on.
Brown?
I
She's
love
the
Brene
best.
Brown. She is.
So she wrote this book called Atlas of the Heart. And
Yes.
did you read Atlas of the Heart?
Yes.
So what's the thesis in Atlas of the Heart? She does this study on 10,000 people. Tell us your 3 top emotions: happy, mad, and sad. And her theory is because we don't have a vocabulary for emotion, we can't put it into language.
Yes.
And because we don't put it into language, we never reach the edges of our fracture.
Right.
So neuroscientifically speaking, little Dan Siegel talk here.
I love it.
Okay. If you can name it,
Yes.
then you can tame it.
Yes.
Well, we can't even express emotions.
Yes.
So like in my counseling office, I have an emotion wheel that sits
Love
right there in
it.
front of the people. And I go, all right, you tell me right now how
Where
you're
you are.
feeling.
Yeah.
And their eyes they get
Yeah,
as
because most people can only identify those 3 emotions. They don't
That's it.
realize that there's hundreds of
Oh, I
feelings
know.
and emotions.
But if we can learn those things and say,
Yeah.
all right, pause for a second, tell me how you're feeling. I need to know what you're feeling right now. And then if we can tie emotion to thought and thought to emotion, now we're going to get somewhere.
Yeah.
So spiritually, physically, emotionally, cognitively, socially, all right? All of these things form the entire identity.
Love this.
So,
and it's all
anyways.
connected. I like that that's holistic. So you're doing kind of a
And it's all
combo.
free.
Well, that's amazing. You probably
We don't
have
charge for it.
people knocking down the doors, because that, I think, is the other issue. When you were talking about, number one, the piece about the access to just people who are qualified to have these conversations, number one. I also think about the fact that there's sometimes a challenge with the financial piece. So maybe someone wants to have professional counseling. Well, I'm a coach. I'm not a certified counselor, but I'm a certified coach. So typically, whether you're a coach or a certified counselor, you charge money for your services. And there's a lot of people that can't afford it. And their insurance might not cover it if it's something that insurance could cover. So that's a huge piece of it, is removing that obstacle and barrier.
You think about that in terms of coaching for a living, all right? Think about what they're getting with this program, and we're not charging. They get
amazing.
Yeah, they get 12 forums. They get 12 group counseling sessions, and they get it ends up being 24 individual counseling sessions. They pay nothing.
Yeah.
It's
and
all
what
free.
I like about that is you're able to help more people when you're doing some of the group type, as opposed to just one-on-one, because there's not a lot of group models out there. So
You're
it
creating
is
community, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then people realize, because I think a lot of the challenges with related to mental health is the isolation. So in 2 ways, the isolation that it can create, but then I also think about the isolation that happened during COVID that created or amplified mental health issues. So either way, you've got isolation working in 2 different ways, but it can be a very isolating thing for people when they have other people around them and they realize, oh, I'm not the only one that feels this way. I'm not the only one that struggles with this or that. Then there's such a benefit to that too.
3 primary reasons for suicidal ideation, people considering suicide, okay? Purpose, I lost my purpose.
Yeah.
Value, I don't possess a value. Socialization, I'm lonely as lonely could be. I'm a burden on the people that I'm around. Purpose, value, and socialization. And this that we're doing brings a purpose, a value, a socialization to the people that we're working with.
Wow. Do you have to cap it, or do you
have to. Yeah. So
that's hard.
It's probably not a good idea that you told me that you're a certified coach, because
Don't worry. I was already thinking in the back of my mind, I should probably volunteer to help out.
yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, we love that. We're always looking for good coaches, good counselors.
Yeah. That's great. And that's good, though, because anyone listening here, too, that's an opportunity to serve
Come
based
look
on
for
gifts that you have. That's amazing. So that's really, okay, that's helpful to know that that's how you got into, because I knew that you did counseling, but I was trying to figure out the connection piece to how you got in there. That's amazing. How you offer a lot of programs for free, and just as as someone who by training went through business school, I think about how do you fund these programs? Is it just volunteer? Is it donation based? How are you able to sustain these programs?
So a guy told me years ago, people give to vision. And if you can show people.
Oh, people give to vision. Sorry, I thought you said people give division. And I was
no. People give
to vision.
Yeah, people give to vision.
Yes.
And our vision has always been changed lives. And what people in this community see is lives are changing through, Kingdom and Community Church. Lives are changing through the Source, which, is our 501c3. And then the division of the Source, lives are changing through the Way now. Another guy told me once, if it's God's will, it's God's bill. And we don't ask for money.
Yeah.
We've never had a capital campaign in our 25 years as a church. Not one time have we ever had a capital campaign. And we have never been in the red. Not one time.
Oh my goodness.
It's
That's amazing.
People that just give.
Yeah.
They see the need and they see the need and they give. They get behind it. And I don't say that bragging. I'm saying it. People see what's going on. People invest in real stuff. You don't have to beg.
Yeah.
You don't have to ask. It's just there.
Yeah.
I mean, people, it's what you said earlier. It's not just writing a check. It's the giving of the life. That's something I say at the church every time. And anybody asks me about the tithe. Okay, do you want to talk about it theologically? I'm happy to talk with you about it theologically. But why do we see the tithe as some sort of finish line? Why don't we say 100% of what I have is God's?
Yeah.
And if he asks me for 100%, I'll give 100%. If he asks me for $50, I'll give $50. Give to whoever asks of you is what Jesus said. I just want to make sure that I have a friend who's a worship leader, and he was asking me about my faith when we first started to meet and talk and develop our friendship. And I said, well, I gave my life to Christ at 10. And he looked at me and he said, now this guy's like super well known. And he said, what does that mean to give your life to Christ? And I thought, you're one of the premier worship leaders in the world.
I don't know. What are you doing when you're...
But I'll be honest, it started me thinking,
yeah.
What does that mean to give my life to Christ? And that's, we ask our congregation that all the time. Will you give your life to Christ? Not some goofy cult kind of thing.
Right. Right.
But will you allow Christ to be the abundance of your heart and to flow from the very core of your being in everything?
Yeah.
Everything you do.
Yeah. Not just when times are good.
Oh, no. Or when no one's looking.
Right, exactly.
We can't say grace.
Right.
We're in the middle of a restaurant. People will think we're weird.
Right.
Is he your life? Why would you be embarrassed of that?
Exactly.
Do you show pictures of your kids? Why would you not be proud of your faith? I don't know. I don't think I have to be ashamed of it, and I don't think I have to shove it down people's throats.
Same, yeah.
You know
That's
what I
how
mean?
I feel about it too.
It was funny. I was asked to give the invocation a couple of years ago when President Obama ran for president the first time. And so the Democratic committee called and said, hey, would you be willing to do the invocation? And I said, you guys know me. You know I'm going to pray in Jesus' name, right? You're down for that? Because if I can't do that,
for that, right?
Because I'm not gonna do it if you're not gonna let me do that.
You know what you're asking for when you call me, right?
And they're like, no, Kevin, we know. And I want you to think about this. This breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart. I have an Iranian brother. He's not Christian.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right? But Nick and I still get along.
Yeah.
So I do this prayer down at the waterfront. And this is exactly how I close the prayer. I said, Lord, I know that there are a lot of faiths represented here today. And there are some people that think I'm crazy for even talking to you because they don't think you exist.
Yeah.
But I stand up here today as a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So I am offering this prayer in your name, Jesus.
Right.
Amen. People wrote editorials about how divisive I was. I was like, I couldn't have been more inclusive there.
I was saying saying as a representation.
Yes, you all are here. Whatever.
Yes.
I'm telling you, this is my faith.
And if you want to stand up next, go
I don't
ahead.
care. This is my faith. Why can't I have my faith and be welcoming? It's oh gosh.
I know.
We just want to fight.
I don't want to fight.
Yes.
I know. I don't want to fight.
I'm so tired of fighting.
Yeah.
We've talked a ton.
I know, but I still have questions
Keep
for you.
Well, I see this magic thing over here, and I know you can ask me as much you want to ask me.
Okay, thank you.
My dinner reservation isn't until 7.
Good. We won't go that long. But no, I want to hear about the books that you wrote.
Okay.
And I want to talk about the funerals. So you tell me which one you want to talk about first. But
well, we could talk about the funerals first.
Okay. Yeah. So you've done 1,500 funerals.
I think something like
counting.
that.
I mean, I'm sure. Yeah.
So I started pastoring at 20. Wow. And from, I will say from 30 to 48, I was probably doing 35 to 50 funerals a year.
Yeah, and I mean, mathematically, you're talking.
It's longevity, really, is all it is.
Almost one a week, though. I mean,
it's a lot.
Yeah,
I've done 14 this year.
Wow.
I think.
Yeah, I just think about. I mean, from your perspective, what that experience is like. You're working with people who are at the darkest times of their life. And you're around all kinds of different scenarios. I mean, I would assume sometimes you're doing funerals potentially for people that aren't even, spiritually aligned with you, perhaps.
Often.
And just, I'd love to hear things that you've taken away from that experience, lessons learned that you'd want to share with other people of just ways to think about life and death. I just, it's not every day you talk to someone who's done 1,500 funerals. And so
I asked my grandma, who was like, in the pastorate, she's the mentor, died a few years ago, officiated a funeral, officiated both my grandmother's funerals.
Wow.
I said to her at 20 years old, before I started this pastorate at Mannington, I said, Granny, I think I can preach pretty good. I think I can teach pretty good. I think people kind of like me. But I said, what do I say when somebody dies?
Yeah.
Or like, what happens if a kid dies?
Oh, gosh.
And she told me this story about this little girl who didn't come home from school one day. And the mom at first wasn't, too upset about it. But as, it got darker and darker and the daughter's not showing up, where's my little girl? And right when she was about to call the authorities and say, hey, my daughter's lost, the little girl walks through the door and says, where have you been? I'm so glad you're okay. What happened? Da-da-da. She said, well, Mommy, when we were getting off the school bus today, my friend, whatever her name was, had the most beautiful China doll. And she dropped the doll. And it broke into 100 pieces. And the mom said, oh my gosh, you stayed and helped her put it together again. And she said, no, it couldn't be fixed. I just stayed and helped her cry.
Oh, I love that.
And so I've kind of held on to that since then. And that's what my grandmother said to me. She said, Kevin, you don't always have to have an answer. Just help people cry. And so I think a lot of people attempt to define empathy. But that really is what empathy is.
Yes.
Empathy is just meeting a person where the person is.
Yeah.
And just helping them.
Yeah.
Tell me what you need.
Yeah.
Do you need me to just shut up and say nothing? You need me to clean up? Need me to wash dishes? Do you need somebody just to lean into?
Yeah.
Do you need a Kleenex?
Right.
Tell me what you need.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting. Normally, when people are with me in those situations, they always apologize when they start crying.
Wow.
Everybody apologizes.
Wow.
Everyone apologizes. But if we can just make space for their tears and their pain and their anger and their questions It's okay.
The full spectrum of emotion.
You don't have to have an answer for everything. A friend of mine died, I don't know, 26, 27 years ago. I don't know how long it was. It's been a long time. And she was young. She was in her early 20s. And her younger sister, who I'd grown up with, at the funeral, I'll never forget what Laura said. She stood up and she said, look, I know nobody knows what to say here. We don't know what to say. But thank you for at least trying.
Aww.
And I thought that was a great attitude to have.
Yeah.
But I would say this, that's one of the huge things I've learned. Just you don't have to give. I know people want to try to say something.
Yes.
But just
show up.
Just be there.
Yeah.
Just be there and make space for the person. That's the best thing you can do. Don't say something silly like, oh, they're in a better place.
Yeah.
Like,
they had lived a long, good life.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's like, I want you to think about something. For the person who is saying goodbye to their loved one, the better place is with them right there.
Of course, yeah.
Look, I get the whole heaven thing.
Sure.
I'm with you. Yeah, that's a better place.
But in the moment.
But I'm still here.
Right.
Right.
I want them here with me.
So that's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not something that I think should be said.
Yeah.
I think just to be present with people.
Yeah.
To be your presence.
Yeah.
And quiet presence. It's interesting. If you read the book of Job, when do things, I mean, like, I know it all goes wrong. Okay. But when does it really go wrong? When he's sitting there in his grief. The friends come.
Yes.
And they sit with him in silence for 7 days.
Yeah.
It's when they start talking that things go off the rails.
You're right.
It's just like you want to look at Bildad, Zophar, and Eliphaz and just say,
you should have just kept your mouth shut.
Guys, just be quiet.
Yeah.
Ask him if he needs a drink.
Yeah.
Ask him if there's something you can get for him.
Sit beside him.
Can I hold your hand? Or, do you just want me to sit here with you? I think that's one of the biggest things.
That's huge. And thank you for sharing that, because I think, and I do a lot of training on a personality tool, and we talk about different personality types. And there are some personality types that really struggle when people aren't happy, and they want people to be happy, and they like to have fun, and they want to make sure other people are having a good time, and they don't do sadness well, and they don't handle situations well when they're in a position where they want to be supportive of other people, but they can't tell a joke, or they can't fix it. They can't make the person feel better by their words. And I think sometimes those people don't show up at all because they just don't know what to say, and they want to fix, and they want to help, and they want to make it better. But like the China doll, just help them cry. It's not about fixing the doll and putting it back together or making someone okay or not be in pain. I mean, that's part of life.
There's a lot of Appalachians who were told, you stop that crying or I'll give you something to cry about. My book is broken into thirds. And it's the first third of As She Is Dying goes through what you're asking me. Some things that I've learned over the years. And the very last chapter in that first section is something to cry about. It's okay to cry. I buried a friend of mine a number of years ago, and he was like the Superman at the baseball park growing up. Everybody wanted to be Randy. And he got shot and killed in a turkey hunting accident. Wow. Guy just shot into the brush and very reckless, and Randy ended up dying. It took an hour and a half to process people past the casket. That's how many people were at that funeral. And it was all of us. It was all of us that had played Little League when we were kids. And I stood there for the entire hour and a half, and every one of us cried. I mean, I feel like crying right now.
I know. I feel like crying, and I didn't even know him.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was hard. Wow. It was really hard, but we all cried. And that's what I wrote in the book. That day, we all had something to cry about.
Yeah.
Death is something to cry about.
It is.
I know we try to hyper-spiritualize the resurrection of Lazarus, but let's just not forget, Jesus wept. Yeah. Why? Because someone dying and people hurting, it's okay to cry with people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think a funeral, people will ask me often, would you rather do a funeral or a wedding? I'll tell you, I'd rather do a funeral every single time.
Really?
Yeah, it's not that I think people dismiss you at a wedding. I think some people do. Not everybody. Like I had I did a wedding this past weekend. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. These people were great. I don't know if I've met a happier bunch of people in my life.
Awesome.
And it was crazy. Like there were
That's what you want it to be.
Hey, look, there were 34 attendants. There were 17 on each side.
No.
And I was like, this is going to be nuts.
Yeah.
Everybody was amazing. All right.
That's great.
But that's not the case in most weddings. Most weddings, it's not that you're an afterthought as the pastor, but
almost like a check the box part of
it's part of the process.
Yeah.
Okay. But when you're at a funeral, people don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They're looking
to you.
for something. And I will tell you, the funeral itself can be one of the single greatest things that help in the journey to the healing. So when I was going into the pastorate, my mom and my grandmother sat me down and they said, look, this is how you're going to do a funeral. They said, interview the family. This is not a time for you to stand up there and tell the world what you think. Ask them what they want shared. Because this is what a funeral should do. Bring glory to God, tribute to the deceased, and comfort to the family. If you can do those three things, glory to God, tribute to the deceased, and comfort to the family, you've done a good job. So when I interview every single family that I do a funeral for, I sit down with the people that are making the decisions, and then I say, who else would you want around? Sometimes it's the whole crew. And other times it's the widow. Okay. And I ask the exact same question every time. I say, I don't want you walking out of here tomorrow saying, I wish Kevin would have said this. You tell me this, and I'll put it all together for you. And there's this weird silence. They just sit there. They don't know what to say. Because what's the first thing you'd say about the person? You know?
How do you capture a whole life in
words,
few sentences? Yeah.
And so that's what happens. They're
running through all
they're
the
running through
memories
everything. Okay. And so what happens is they just start giving random thoughts, and I'm just taking notes. My journalism degree coming into play. I'm just taking notes. And then that's what I tell them. I say, you tell me this, and I'll put it all together for you. And they'll give me. It's funny because they'll start talking and I'll say, do you guys realize you just gave me 10 pages of notes? They don't even understand. And so music, huge deal. Huge deal. And then I usually read the same scriptures. I read a passage from Isaiah 55. I read John 14. I read Revelation 21. Sometimes I'll mix it up. But those three scriptures have the power to minister. And then I just talk about the person. And then my mom and my granny told me too, they said, say the person's name. They want to hear their name. Don't use personal pronouns. Say their name.
And pronounce it correctly. That's a big deal.
That's a huge deal.
Say
the name. And another thing they said, if you don't know them, say you don't know them.
Don't pretend like you're best friends.
The vast majority of funerals I do, I don't know who these people are, you know? So I get up there and I say, I never had the honor of meeting John. I never had the honor of meeting Jane. But let me tell you what the family told me about them. And I always
speaking on their behalf.
Exactly. And I learned, don't make eye contact because you'll lose it. Oh my gosh. But that's the thing, just say what they once said because you're not going to say everything. But it's the first step. Now, here's the other thing, okay? I've done so many funerals at McCullough Funeral Home over in Westover. And one of the chapters in the book is called They Never Closed Fairmont Road. I want you to think about this. Every time you drive past a funeral home and there's people walking in, your life's going on. Their life has stopped. And watch this. If you've ever been to a funeral, and nearly every single person has, think about the people that come to the visitation. Well, even back up from that. The people that read the obituary and go, oh, John died. That's too bad. Then you have people that find out about it and they go to the visitation. Then you have people that go to the visitation and to the funeral. the closer you sit to the front, the more the person meant to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then do you go to the graveside?
Right. There's a lot of, trying to decide that.
There's a progression.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the farther back you are in the progression,
Yeah.
the sooner you get back to life.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality is, you know, okay. Let me switch from the funeral home to the hospital.
Yeah.
You get on the elevator at the hospital. Think of all the stories on that elevator.
Oh gosh. Yes.
Like what happens if you stop at the 5th floor?
Yes.
You know, the ICU floor at Ruby. What happens if you stop at the 6th floor and you turn left? Well, at least, Ruby has grown a lot over the years.
Yeah.
But if you turn one way, you're going to the birthing ward.
Yes.
If you turn the other way, are you going to the PICU?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like my son's a PICU nurse. My youngest is a PICU nurse.
Wow.
So you think about our life continues. Some people's life has stopped. And we have to be empathetic,
yes.
towards that. Look, people don't want our sympathy.
Right.
That's like sitting in the cheap seats and
like
saying, I got you. It is condescending.
Yeah.
Get there with the people.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. Don't ever say this. I know how you feel. You don't know how I feel.
No, we're not the same person.
That's the point. Even if you have the same experience, it's still not the same experience.
It doesn't matter if you both lost your mother or whatever. You're different humans and your experience is different. So interesting. I always worked in an office until COVID started and, lockdown happened. And when I was working from home, I was sitting such that the window faced the front of our road. And there's a cemetery down the road from us. And so we don't get a ton of traffic on our road, but if I was on a conference call or something, a lot of times I'd be just looking out the window, and there would be times where I was in a meeting and I'd suddenly realize there's a funeral procession going by right now. And those were very humbling moments for me, because number one, I thought about the fact of I never knew that was even happening when I was working in an office. I never thought about the fact that those processions were going by my house regularly. And I almost felt guilty sometimes about the fact that I was I felt like I should stop talking or get off the conference call, because I thought, here I am just engaging in my daily life. And I would look at the people, in the cars going by thinking, this is probably one of the worst days of their life right now. And here I am just having a meeting.
It's heartbreaking. Watch when a funeral procession is going by. It's embarrassing sometimes. People trying to beat the lights.
Yeah.
I've seen people cut in and out of the procession, Now, on the other hand, when Coach Stu died, I was part of that funeral, and it was beautiful. People lining the roads.
Yeah, or people pulling over when they see.
I will tell you this, in Mannington, western end of the county, places like that, probably in Shinston.
Yes.
They stop.
Yes.
They stop. I'm telling you, they'll stop even if they're on the other side of the road.
Yes.
To pay respects. And look,
that's very honoring.
It is. Yeah. I'm not trying to be the grumpy old guy here.
Yeah.
But there's something that we've lost something.
Yeah.
We're too fast, too crowded, too noisy now. Just slow down. Like, where do you have to be?
Exactly.
Like, really? You need to make it to the mall?
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, just take a moment and recognize.
There's like 7 cars here.
Yeah.
Breathe, sister.
Right.
Yeah. Lord.
Wow.
There's a beautiful editorial that Anna Quindlen wrote. She used to be a New York Times columnist. She's turned into a novelist. But she wrote this editorial once titled, "We Are Defined by Those We Have Lost." And I've thought about that a lot over the years too. The people who have gone on before us, how have they defined us? For the good, for the bad. How have we been defined by those people? I don't think we can forget that either. And I typically say that in every funeral that I do. Recognize the person we are honoring today, you have been defined by them. And if you've been defined in the positive by them, then live your life defining as you've been defined. You know, so that's another thing that we say. So,
gosh, that's amazing. Something to think about, and I think a good reminder for people, you know, for the time that we are here, to really think about how are we living our lives, and are we living our lives the way we should be, want to, you know, all those questions of are we really where we want to be and should be? 14 other podcasts for that.
Yeah, really. The book was a bit of a labor of love.
Okay.
You know, I've written two.
Yes.
The second one, it was funny when I wrote it. It's a prayer journal. And my mother, God bless my mother. So the second book was written in 36 hours. Literally written in 36 hours. It's a prayer journal that I kept during our Holy Week vigil.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, we just published it. Yeah. Okay. But the first one, that's the one.
That was the one.
It's the one. And my friend, who's the worship leader, a guy named Jason Upton, and he's a songwriter and Christian artist and so on and so forth. He had read some of the things that I had written, and he said, we got to get you published. And so flew out to Milwaukee, where Jay lives, and I'd sent him a bunch of stuff. I got off the plane, and he said, we're publishing your eulogies. And I was like, what? Who wants to read my eulogies? And he said, Kev, there's hope that I hear on these pages. And when people are at a place of death, they need hope. Those living in darkness have seen a great light. If we, in the midst of the darkness of death, can point to the light of Christ, that's a good thing. So that's what we did. And so the book is broken into thirds.
It's called As She
Is Dying. And it's on Amazon. Wow. You can just click on there. It's on barnesandnoble.com, so on and so forth. But it's always on Amazon.
Wow.
But the first third of the book is what you asked me, things that I've learned in the face of death. The second section of the book is transformational life, death stories. You know, so like my Uncle Bob, my great Uncle Bob, was an alcoholic for years and years and years and years. And right before he died, he got sober. But he felt like he had lived his life so wrong that while he believed in God, he never believed that God could forgive him. And like he would come to my church and sit in the parking lot and listen to my sermon on WAJR while we were inside, but he didn't feel worthy. He did not feel worthy of coming in. So weeks before he died, his caregiver, who was his girlfriend, God bless him. I mean, he's like almost 90 years old and she's almost 90 years old. And they were just sweethearts. And she was pure as the wind-driven snow. And dating my Uncle Bob, who was like, oh my gosh, he was like Uncle Si on steroids. This is crazy. And she said, Kevin, your Uncle Bob will not agree to go to the hospital, and I'm afraid he's going to die. And so I went to his house, and I convinced him to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
And I said, Uncle Bob, you know the deal. I preached the gospel to him so many times. And he said yes.
No.
And so he gave his life to Christ. And so he gets out of the hospital. This makes me cry, too.
But that's okay to cry.
It is okay.
Yes.
Oh, and I would do it. So I go to his house after he's home, and he called me Neff. He goes, hey, Neff. I said, yeah. He goes, you know my bell collection in there? I went, yeah. He goes, go get that big brass school bell. So I went and I got it. And he says, bring it in here. And I brought it in. He goes, listen, your uncle's going to die soon. And he said, that church of yours is really growing, and you're going to have to build a new sanctuary. And I went, Uncle Bob. He was, you just listen to me. I'm telling you. Your church is growing. You're going to have to build a new sanctuary. I'm willing you this school bell. And he said, when you build that new sanctuary, on the first Sunday that you open it, I won't be here, but I want you to take this bell. And I want you to do like they used to do in the old days and ring the bell that church is starting.
Oh, wow.
And
wow,
have these
chills.
people come and receive what I received.
Wow.
He wasn't lying. We ended up building that. He died.
That's amazing.
He willed me the school bell.
And you rang
We
it.
built the sanctuary, and the first Sunday I'm out there ringing that bell. So that story is in there.
Amazing.
There's another story in there about my grandfather giving his life to Christ. He was really troubled. There was a story about my father-in-law and my mother-in-law. I did my father-in-law's funeral, and my mother-in-law was overwhelmed with grief right after my father-in-law died. And she just started hitting me one night after it was all over with. And my wife said to my mother-in-law, she said, "Mom, there's nothing you can do to Kevin to make him stop loving you." And in that moment, I thought, I don't know if I've ever started loving her. So I was equally convicted. And so as we worked through her grieving process to the point of her death, we had to work and really develop love for one another.
Yeah.
So that story's in there. So that's the second section.
Okay.
Stories of, people that received transformation in death.
Yes.
And then the third section is eulogies that I actually wrote. Really neat eulogies.
Wow.
I mean, just neat eulogies. I could tell you a million stories, but
That's amazing.
and it's everything from World War II veterans to suicide to drug overdoses to children. It covers the gamut.
Yeah.
And if it's people in Morgantown reading it, they'll know a lot of the people in there. And I obviously changed the names to protect the innocent.
Know the story.
Yeah, they'll know the story and they'll know who I'm talking about. So anyways,
wow.
that's the book.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm interested to read it. I just think my last question I'll ask you, but I could literally talk to you for hours, and I'm sure people tell you that a lot. I think anyone in a leadership role sometimes will feel pressure because they're in a leadership role, but I just try to sit in your shoes and think about, to me, I would feel sometimes a lot of pressure based on, if I'm pastoring a church and I'm trying to lead a congregation of people, or if I'm leading a funeral service and people are looking to me, there's a heavy emotional weight that comes with a lot of this, and how I would internalize that for myself is a pressure to do it right or to do it well or to honor the people that I'm serving. And I'm just curious, from your perspective, is that something that you've encountered or dealt with, and if it is, how you handled the weight of that? Because especially even what we've talked about today, there's some heavy components to the work that you do. I
think honesty is a huge part of it. I think authenticity is a huge part of it. It's what I said at the beginning when we were talking about, me being the worst emailer in the world. And, not always answering everybody immediately because, when you and I started this, not just because of sound, but because my phone is on airplane mode. Whoever's in front of me in the moment needs to be the very most important person in the whole world, and we don't do that. We're always worried about where we're going, and we're never, focused on where we are. This old Jesuit priest, Father Larry Gillick, I've been to a number of silent retreats, and he always says to be present to the present of the present. Father Patsy Iaquina, who was a Catholic priest in Morgantown for years and in North Central West Virginia for years, he's taught me countless times, Kevin, don't anticipate, participate.
Ooh.
So I think, is there pressure? Yeah. Oh my gosh, I feel it. I feel it every week. I feel it every day. If you take it seriously, I think you feel it.
Yeah.
Bear
if
one
you
another's.
Care.
Yeah, if you care. Bear one another's burdens. But I really think if you're fully present with the person in front of you, you become a good listener. You realize, okay, so this person's in front of me. And this is not me going, well, it's not my problem. This is me saying, okay, this is the person in front of me. This is their issue.
Yeah.
let's give them a safe space
Yeah.
to where they can share their thoughts, share their emotions, share how we got to this place, okay? And then not agree or disagree or try to defend myself or give advice. Just make space for the person in the moment, you know? I think those things are important. Be loving, you know? Always remember, your shoes are your shoes. My shoes are my shoes. I'll never walk in those shoes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I can stand next to you in mine.
Absolutely.
You know, things like that.
Yeah.
You know, don't ask anybody to do anything you wouldn't do yourself. Yeah, I mean, I just be authentic.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I don't want to be seen as a showman. And because, like, see, I don't preach from the platform.
Gotcha.
I walk on the floor. I don't think it's bad to preach from the platform.
Right. It's just
But
your
me,
preference. Yeah.
me, I want to walk. I want to sit. I want to stand with the people. You know, I want to try the best that I can to be among them.
Yeah.
You know, I want to talk to them. I want a sermon to be conversational.
Right.
I yell way less now than I yelled when I was a kid. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
I want to talk to the congregation like I'm talking to you right now.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Those are some of the things.
No, that's
but yeah,
amazing.
there's a huge weight on your shoulder.
Well, and how do you take care of yourself? I mean, especially with as you think about anxiety, depression. I mean, genuinely, I think a lot of times people who are in roles of serving others sometimes aren't great about also taking care of themselves because they are very focused on taking care of others.
So do you want my routine that I do when I'm actually doing it?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. When you, yeah. The ideal.
And
right?
this is something that I think people need to understand.
Yeah.
Life is tidal. Tidal.
Okay.
And we need to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So like, I was out of town last weekend.
Yes.
That makes it difficult.
It does.
When you're on vacation,
Yes.
that makes it difficult. When a tragedy comes up or an illness, it makes it difficult.
Yeah.
The silly season,
Yes.
you know, like you're like silly season, like from Thanksgiving to Christmas.
Yes.
It's a little goofy during that
It is
season.
goofy.
Okay. So
Yeah.
life is tidal. Okay. Don't beat yourself up if you're not doing it, but rhythm is important.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what do I do? Okay. Typically
on a non-tidal wave time frame.
Really. My alarm goes off somewhere between 4:30 and 5 in the morning.
Wow.
I get up and I do a 2-mile prayer walk through Westover.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I try my very best to be in the scripture every day. I try to pray every day, including a contemplative time. Contemplative prayer is basically 20 minutes of absolute silence. You're silent in body, mouth, and mind, acknowledging that you are in the presence of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And I don't need to go on and on with my words. In the 6th chapter of Matthew, that's what Jesus says. Pagans think that they will be heard for their many words, but God already knows. So like right now, my mother has colon cancer and she's doing very well.
Good.
She's doing very well in her treatments. I know she has colon cancer. God knows my mother has colon cancer. So what do? Sit there and tell God 700 times that my mother has colon cancer?
And then if you forget to pray a day about
like
her
somehow
colon cancer,
my mother's
that now
colon
she's
cancer
not going to be
hangs in the
healed
balance
because I didn't
because
pray
I
about
messed
it
it
today.
up.
Yeah.
No, let's just sit with God.
Yeah.
And he knows and I know. And if I'm aware of God and God's obviously aware of me, we can just sit there. Here's how it was explained to me, contemplative prayer. Imagine an old couple who's been married for 70 years, swinging on a porch swing. They don't even have to talk.
No.
They know.
Yeah.
It's just that they're together.
Yeah.
That's contemplative prayer.
Wow.
I try to do that 20 minutes a day, every single day. Just sit in absolute silence, silent in body, silent in mouth, silent in mind.
Yeah.
And I could talk to you about that for hours too. I try my best. I used to weigh over 300 pounds.
What?
Yes.
Wow, that's hard to imagine.
Yes. I'm a big fella, but I used to weigh over 300 pounds.
Okay.
I try to balance fasting
Oh, yeah.
feasting, and daily sustenance.
Okay.
I'm excellent at fasting and I'm excellent at feasting. I am not very good at daily sustenance, but I've tried. I've tried to learn a balanced lifestyle in those ways. You know, like we're going out tonight with friends. We love the meal.
Yeah.
God loves the meal. Yeah. So that's part of my routine as well. I try to read every day. I heard a statistic once that if you read an hour a day, it's 4% of your day.
Yeah.
If you make that a common practice in your life, you know, if that's part of your regular routine, you're among 4% of the population.
Wow.
Yeah. I try to read about 30 books a year. And when I say that, it's either eyes on a page or get an Audible. Audible's huge. You know what I mean? So anyways.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's part of my routine. I try to do good for people every day. Yeah. That's a little bit easier for me with what I do just because I'm a minister.
I don't know. Though sometimes you could be like, I'm tired of doing good today.
Yeah. Who's on my schedule now?
I don't want to help.
Yeah, I know. You out.
You helped me today.
I've done enough good today. Go away. No, I would never do that. I don't know. And you just try to be present. You know, my family knows that I'm not home a lot. But when I'm with my family, I want to be with my family.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. I try best to balance. And it is those 5 things.
Yes.
The spiritual, the physical, the emotional, the cognitive, the social.
Yeah.
I try to keep my life in balance.
One or more gets out of whack.
On those things. You know, so I try to go to church every single week. You're like, you're a pastor. How do you not do that? Well, I mean, we travel a lot.
But you're not always preaching.
No, I'm not. No, and if you're not preaching, you know, where are you?
You have to be there, I guess.
But, you know, I try to be in an assembly of people worshiping God every single week, you know. Our church has had organized order of worship prayer every single day since 2011. We've never missed a day.
Wow.
Yeah, we've had it every single morning at 6:30 in the morning. So I lead prayer once a week, and you know, so anyway, twice a week. I lead twice a week, Thursdays and Saturdays. So I don't know. That's kind of my routine. I don't know.
I love that. Thank you. I just am curious because I do feel like sometimes people struggle, especially again in roles where they're really heavy on serving others and caretaking. And
you have to be filled up if you're pouring out.
Exactly.
If you don't take time for yourself.
And I think people miss that message sometimes. And in good intention, it's in the spirit of serving others and they're trying to do good. But at the same time, you're right. You can't pour from an empty cup. And I think sometimes that message gets lost with people. So
there's a book by Parker Palmer called On the Brink of Everything, and he talks about proper selfishness. He says, you know, we don't have a proper selfishness present in our society.
No.
If we did, we would be filling ourselves up properly so that we can pour out for others.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yeah. I love that. This has been amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much.
I like I said, I've had so many people tell me, you have to have him on the podcast. He has a really interesting story. And I'm always like, what does that mean when someone says he has a really interesting story? But I know that you're doing amazing work and having such a positive impact on so many people. And that's what, you know, hopefully this is an opportunity. I got to know you better today, which I appreciate, but hopefully others get to know you and be inspired by you.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah. Amen to that. All right. I'm going to read your bio now that we're done.
Oh, Lord. That's so funny. We want to welcome Kevin Cain to the program.
Exactly. Now that we're 2 hours in.
Has it been 2 hours? Oh, my gosh.
No, it hasn't been 2 hours. It hasn't been.
It's close. Almost. Oh my gosh.
No, but I do actually before I read the bio, I do a lightning round at the end of my
Let's
podcast.
Do it.
Are you good for a lightning round?
I'll answer with lightning answers.
Ooh,
not my long drawn out
answers.
This
is 60 seconds to answer as many open-ended questions as you can.
Okay.
Hang on, let me get my timer started.
May 9th, 1992. That's my anniversary.
Okay, good. Good that
November
you know that.
12th. That's her birthday.
You're doing great if you know those two and remember those. All right. On your mark, get set, go. What season best fits your personality?
Oh, gosh. Love Christmas, but Easter's my favorite.
Aww. What's your most used emoji in text?
Heart.
What book, song, movie, or podcast has had the greatest impact on your life? I know. And you read a lot of books, too.
Into the Silent Land by Martin Laird.
Ooh, okay. I haven't heard of that. What's something about you that surprises people when they first hear it?
I was a break dancer in the 9th grade. Move along, please.
All right. Fill in the blank. I spend too much money on
books.
Never wasted. What celebrity would you want to play you in a movie?
Oh, Lord. Somebody just no one knows about.
Well, the next question is, if you write a book, what would you want the title to be? But you've already written a book. How about, if you catch me by the fridge at night, I'm probably sneaking
Chocolate and milk.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay.
Like in chocolate, dark chocolate and whole milk.
Yeah. The real good stuff.
Yeah. Good Lord.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much.
All right. You've been listening to Pastor Kevin Cain, who was born and raised in Westover and has been preaching in this community since he was 16. In 1998, he and his wife, Leslie, founded Kingdom, a community church, and have been leading this congregation ever since. They served as directors of Morgantown High School's Fellowship of Christian Athletes for 13 years and are still heavily invested in the next generation. Kevin is the author of As She Is Dying and The Humility of Being Found, and is the founder of the Source Foundation, as well as Revs, right?
Brisket and barbecue.
Revs Brisket and Barbecue.
And The Way.
And The Way. Pastor Kevin enjoys barbecue and is the father of 3 children, Tanner, Garrett, and Cameron. This has been fun. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I close out all my shows by saying, shine bright, everyone.